Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for another amazing topic of conversations. I want to thank the Health Channel for their support and please subscribe to their newsletter if you want to live a healthy lifestyle. Also, the I Remember Against Genocide bracelet. Well, good morning, everyone. Laurie, thank you so much for being here with me today and with
Thank you for
everyone.
having me.
Laurie is a social worker, an activist, and also the chair of the National Organization for Women, the Miami chapter. Laurie, please tell us, will with the latest decision by the court, will abortion end?
Abortion is not going to end. It's not going to end with the overturn of Roe. It's going to continue. And what's going to happen now is that we are going to see, instead of safe abortions, unsafe abortions.
Just to give you an idea and a few facts, 1 in every 4 pregnancies end in abortion every year. And every year there's 25 million unsafe abortions. So I'm imagining that that number is going to increase substantially now
Absolutely.
that now that they cannot go to a safe place.
Absolutely. This really, it's going to be a horrific statistic. We hear people saying now, we won't go back. This is what people have been afraid of what they've seen in the past, years ago,
With
where people
anger,
were, yes, where
anger.
people were having unsafe abortions, where people were doing whatever they needed to do out of desperation to prevent the pregnancy. And yeah.
A lot of the countries, even the more conservative countries, have changed their laws to make abortion legal. So now that the abortion is back into each state, can we do something besides the rallies, besides everything? Because now I hear the story of someone that is, and I don't want to give out the name, but they are actually putting together a trailer and adapting it as clinics to put them at the border of each state so that women can just cross the border and have a safe abortion. But they don't have a follow up. So what happens then?
That's a very good question, and the follow-up care is so important with any kind of medical procedure. I am not a physician, but I think we know people need follow-up care,
Yeah.
especially for an invasive procedure. These are acts of desperation. These are acts of courage, I would say, as well, for sure, that people are willing to put these systems in place, these very intricate, very strategic systems to be able to help people who need an abortion and who want an abortion. There is a lot of discussion about people wanting to create something like the Underground Railroad. There are people who are very actively making plans right now, different organizations, to get people to places where they still can have an abortion. In Florida right now, abortion is still legal. I want to say that as well, that abortion is still legal here. But we don't know for how long.
And
We know
until
that
15 weeks.
So now there's the 15 weeks, and that was shut down though by a judge. He has stopped that. for now. But we know that our conservative governor feels otherwise, that he wants to see the day where abortion is illegal in the state of Florida. And there's a lot of different groups and different areas where people are working to respond to the SCOTUS decision. And there are a lot of different areas where people have really been involved in this issue in different ways, even prior to the SCOTUS decision, specifically people who organize around reproductive justice, people who provide direct services to people who want an abortion, people who need an abortion to save their own life. There are people who specifically focus on voting. To answer your question, what can we do? We can vote, and we can vote for pro-choice candidates. That is essential right now. So there's a lot of different areas that people are focusing on. People want to volunteer. They may not be able to be out at a rally in the heat. They may not be able to protest. They may not be able to be public with their face out in public for different reasons. They may not be a healthcare provider, but they want to do something. They can reach out to organizations that work on this issue specifically. There's a lot of things that people can do right now.
Are you aware of the lawsuit that was filed by a Jewish congregation that this law was against the Jewish tradition? Can you explain it? Can you please explain it? Because there's a lot of people that are not understanding.
Yeah, so there was a synagogue here in Florida that did file a lawsuit, and I am Jewish, I'll say that as well. I'm a Reformed Jew, and the way that we see this issue based on our scriptures is that the time to which a child is a child there's a very specific time. A constellation of cells is not a child. And what constitutes a baby is different based on the way people are interpreting this. But science tells us, and our scripture guides us in what it is that we're supposed to do in situations like this. And they filed this lawsuit because they know that women are being precluded from getting health care. Abortion is health care. Women, of course, are not the only people who can get pregnant. This, occurs outside of the binary. And so I think, we need to recognize as Jews, and we need to follow suit. We need to recognize what they've done. I personally, as a Jew, I would hope other congregations would do the same thing. I know many different Jewish organizations have spoken out about this issue and have been very focused on reproductive health for some time, including National Council of Jewish Women, which I'm a member of. Many, many different organizations, synagogues, rabbis. There are local members of clergy here of our synagogues that have spoken out. But I would encourage them to do the same thing, because these are problems that are going to show up, in the offices of our rabbis, in different parts of our houses of worship. We're going to see this. It's going to show up in our doctor's offices. It's going to show up in my office in different ways, and it's going to be everywhere. But specifically as it pertains to the Jewish community, this is the time for action.
To quote exactly, it says, the act prohibits Jewish women from practicing their faith free of government intrusion, and this violates her privacy rights and religious freedom.
Absolutely. The separation between church and state. That's
correct. So this is
that's a piece of this too. I mean, there's many pieces when you kind of dissect it. But yes, at what point did we get here now where the government is making decisions about a person's health care?
So I want to change topic and ask you the difficult question. I know that there is no provisions for sexual assault, rape, or incest, and you are a survivor.
Yeah.
Can you tell us your story?
So I experienced incest at the hands of my biological father, the husband of one of my babysitters, and a small group of people that I don't know who they were.
All of them?
I'm sorry.
All of them?
That occurred while I was a young child. Over time, I don't have memories of anyone except for my father as I got older. And this went on until I was 13 years old. My parents divorced, and then several years later, my mother remarried, and she married another abuser. He did not sexually abuse me, but emotionally abused me, physically abused me, and I had it rough. I really did. And my concern as it pertains to reproductive health is that so many survivors of incest are going to become impregnated by a parent, by a family friend, or somebody they know. Most survivors of sexual violence do know their offenders. And then what? Then what happens?
Like you're a child, you didn't get pregnant with
I
all
did
the
not get pregnant. No, I did not get pregnant. And I have needed reproductive health care, like many survivors, due to the nature of the situation with the assaults and having experienced extended sexual violence or for an extended period of time. And at the end of the day, I feel that I should be able to make decisions for myself about my healthcare. I feel that anybody should, as it pertains again specifically to survivors of sexual violence and survivors of incest. These are children. What is an 8-year-old, 9-year-old, 10-year-old, 11-year-old, 12-year-old, 13-year-old child? How are they going to take care of a baby? And
it's not only about abortion. You just mentioned that you needed reproductive care. So it wasn't only about abortion. They're eliminating a lot of the healthcare issues that women need.
correct. And this is the beginning. Abortion is the beginning. I believe they are coming for our birth control. I believe that all of this is really inherently about controlling women, even though it's not just women who can get pregnant. I believe there are a multitude of problems as it concerns survivors, because yes, how do you take care of a baby? And then these conservative legislators want to say, well, you have choices. You can give them up for adoption, or I've heard people here in our community who are conservatives. I'm sorry.
How many kids are in the foster homes that are being abused? So why bring a child to just give him away to be abused even further?
Right. There's that conversation. There are a multitude of conversations here. There's the conversation about, again, I've heard people here in our community who identify as Republicans, not just Republicans, specifically conservatives. And they say, well, if you're impregnated, even by, a relative, and you are a child and it is indeed incest, then that pregnancy and that child you will have as a gift from God. And so I've had some pretty emotional and reactions really to this, and also, you laugh and you smile because the absurdity and just the factor of how ridiculous a comment that is, and also how cruel a comment that is. It's like you don't even know how to react. It is difficult. The other piece of this for survivors, I would say, is it's not just about, whether or not to proceed and with the pregnancy, and then you have a child and you're going to deliver a baby. It's the psychological implications of what is happening to you, because
At
you've
9
been,
years old or 10 years old, being pregnant
yes,
with a child and the father is your father, like, how do you deal with
yes,
that?
you've had your innocence stripped from you. You've had a brutal assault on your body, on your soul. You've had your power taken away from you, and then you have been re-traumatized a second time simultaneously by being impregnated. And now, with the SCOTUS decision, you are traumatized yet a third time because you do not have the power to make your own decision as to what happens to your body.
I know. I literally am speechless because it's like, what do you do? So now, can you please tell us about Christie's house, Christie's story, and how this nonprofit started? Because I don't think anybody knows. We all have heard of Christie's house, the nonprofit, but we haven't heard about the story that was behind this nonprofit.
Yeah, Christie House is a local nonprofit organization, and I've thought a lot about that organization lately in light of the SCOTUS decision, because it was created based off of a real story of a young girl named Christy, back in 1992. After Hurricane Andrew, there was a little girl who was playing outside, and her neighbor came outside, saw her playing in the yard, and recognized that she was a very young child, and she was also very visibly pregnant.
She
And
was
that
years old.
she was 9 years old. 9 years old. And the neighbor went and called the authorities. Christy ended up having this baby, and has not had an easy life. She, to my understanding, is doing a lot better now. But the effects physically, psychologically, how they impact every facet of a person's life, they are devastating. And without interventions, appropriate interventions, it's very hard for somebody that young to truly recover. We all have scars as survivors and as human beings, in general, regardless of what you've experienced. But we've all experienced some sort of minor to major trauma. But I do believe people are resilient. I've come a long way in my own journey and what I had been through. And, I believe that we need to stop causing harm, in so many ways. And sadly, our Supreme Court has made a decision as it pertains to our reproductive health in trying to strip us of our power. And for survivors specifically, it's to say it's disconcerting is an understatement.
So this is why now we're going back to the unsafe abortions. Because a little girl If she doesn't have a place to go, they're just going to come back and, I'm sorry to say, but use the hanger. In the hanger, and people didn't remember, they literally tried to get an abortion with one of the wire hangers.
Yeah, that was something that did occur, decades ago. That is a fear that many people have. That's one fear many people have. Other fears are that people are going to try to commit suicide. Other fears are that once a child or a woman become pregnant, then the male is going to decide, well, we're not going to allow this to happen. And then he is going to murder the female or murder the child. There are implications for all different types of scenarios that I don't think people are prepared for.
I don't think they're even imagining the ripple effect
No,
of what this has caused.
no, no. But it is very much intertwined with our systems of oppression. It's very much intertwined with the fact that our most marginalized communities have had a very, very difficult time accessing care before the SCOTUS decision, whether it's reproductive health care or health care in general. And now what is going to happen to communities of color, to low wealth communities, to our immigrant community, to our LGBTQ community, to our survivor communities, where you don't have these privileges in a lot of different ways of getting what it is that you need, and you are now at the mercy of these situations. And this is what we're fighting back against. I believe, there is hope to turn this back in the right direction. But hope has to be coupled with action. That's why
I know that a lot of the companies, the major companies, are supporting women and giving them the extra funds that they need in order to travel to another state to get an abortion and get the follow-up they need.
yeah,
So
there are some that are doing that.
yes, companies are actually stepping up and helping. But as you say, the marginal communities, they're some of the companies, or if they work as in the hospitality in a restaurant, and they don't have, or they don't even want to talk about it with their boss. That's the problem. They
Right.
don't have the funds and they cannot say anything and they don't want to miss work. That's where the perfect storm is starting to brew, and we're going to have a very dangerous situation in our hands.
We are
But
similar in some ways to the pandemic, even, where we see these large scale problems that affect so many people. We're all affected in to some extent by the pandemic, and all of us, regardless of our gender, we're all going to be affected by this SCOTUS decision of overturning Roe. And the question is now, how do we fight back? What is it that we can do? But the truth of the matter is, there are so many communities that have been struggling long before the pandemic, long before this decision of overturning Roe. And these are just situations that exacerbate their vulnerability, exacerbate the fact that even if they did have the right to an abortion legally, because that's, of course, coupled with the term right, they didn't have the access. And the term that's being used more commonly now than years ago is reproductive justice, because it's not just about the right, it's about the access. And so
it's about our choice.
And it's about
and it's
choice.
also a very difficult choice. Like a girl of 9 years old, she doesn't even comprehend what is going on.
Right. Young children also don't always have the vocabulary to verbalize what's happening to them, to ask for help. I know I didn't. Even though I knew people in my life knew what was going on and chose to turn the other cheek, and this isn't happening, and this isn't real. And there were so many things that were going on. But there were also the fact that I couldn't do that for myself. And when you see a situation like this now where a child is pregnant, a 9-year-old child is pregnant,
Like, how can you deny?
how can you deny?
How can
How
you
can you
deny that? Did you ask for help finally?
I asked for help indirectly. Um, let's say that. There were a lot of people that I am 100% certain knew based on how they responded to me in all different situations. My mother to this day says it never happened. Or till the last time that I saw her, we are estranged. And it is better that way. But my last interactions with her, it just, she doesn't believe it. That is its own painful experience for your mother to deny your experience, your reality, to deny situations like this where you have needed reproductive health care because of what you've experienced. I think, in my situation, I am racially privileged. I identify as white. I'm Jewish. I'm from Miami. And sometimes the perception I feel like from our community and from who people perceive us to be, even here in this city.
Like, you're not abusable, like something like that. You're
And
not the
that's one of
type. Yeah.
that I wasn't perceived to be a child in need. And I was a child in need in several different ways, but that's one of the reasons that I tell my story. Because when we don't talk about these things, the damage that occurs, the amount of work that it takes to recover, to heal, to get better. Another piece I'll say of my story as it pertains to healthcare specifically is that I developed a host of medical problems. I still deal with some that just kind of come out of nowhere, and they have to be addressed. And by the time I was 31 years old, I was in a nursing home, unexpected to recover, and I'd been very, very ill for many years. And this is attributed to adverse childhood experiences, where your body literally has absorbed so much trauma. This is science, that this happens to so many people, that it's not new research, but it's something that we're finally paying attention to in the recognition of how adverse childhood experiences affect people's health and well-being. Let's look at pregnancy among a child and what that is going to do to them and how it can harm them in so many different ways. I'm fully recovered today. I have had to deal with several other ailments, but nothing to the severity of what I dealt with at that time. Thank God. But there's just so much that you have to go through, and for people not to be talking and not to be speaking up. This is why I do, because I don't want to see other people go through what I went through. I don't want to see other people in the Jewish community go through it. I don't want to see anybody go through it. And I think we need to really examine our beliefs, the things that we deny, the things that we do to keep ourselves feeling comfortable when we make these decisions about who can be harmed or what all of our privileges look like or don't look like. These are conversations that we need to be having. And in any situation when a child is being harmed, or even when you suspect the child is being harmed, say something. Let the appropriate people investigate, and don't deny it. Don't do what we've been taught to do. Most definitely as white women, just stay quiet. This is
Just look the other way and it will go away, and it doesn't go away.
correct.
Laurie, I cannot thank you enough for sharing.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
And to everyone, we fought for abortion rights and we're doing it again. So I know that there's a lot of organizations, Women's Fund, Planned Parenthood, Christie's House, the National Organization for Women, all of them that you can volunteer, you can donate, you can help. There's many ways that you can get involved. So thank you, everyone. And hopefully by the next conversation, we're hearing better news on every front. And above all, stay safe. Thank you.